good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Now, we've heard a lot of buzzing happening in the media about the recommendations for a salary increase for government officials. We have heard this from the Salary Review Commission. And recently, well, just last week, we heard the Prime Minister commenting on what he thought about the recommendations for an increase in salary for government officials. And what he said was that he does not oppose such an increase. While we have heard a number of politicians from all sides of the political spectrum in Trinidad and Tobago stating that though it is good, this may simply not be the time. We've heard these comments coming out of the UNC by the opposition leader, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, as well as from the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, all citing that this simply may not be the right time for a hike in salary increase or its salary increase, seeing that so many persons in so many different spheres and sectors of the population are having a hard financial time, some citing this to be a bit insensitive. But this morning, I have the privilege of chatting online with a former Trinidad and Tobago Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, and we are going to be chatting about this proposed salary increase a bit for government officials and getting his perspective, especially from his party, the National Transformation Alliance. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Always my pleasure.
All right. So as I said in my prelude, there's a number of persons on all the sides of the political spectrum saying that though this is a good thing, this may not be the best time for such an implementation. What are you thinking, or what are the views of the National Transformation Alliance?
Yeah, well, firstly, good morning again. I think this must not be seen as something as to bash the SRC or the SRC being insensitive based on the present economic climate. The SRC, they have a job to do, and maybe the SRC are actually analyzing, doing a comparative analysis of other countries, looking at what usually happens, that they believe it is justified. And so this must not be seen in any way that the SRC would have done something wrong or they were just acting as political puppets to the government. That is unacceptable. The second thing is we would have heard persons such as Dr. Terence Farrell and others try to justify by stating that it can be afforded. And it could very well be the situation. So that is definitely not the reason for us to have any debate. It's not whether it is the country could afford it or not. It has to do with whether it should happen. So let's not look to bash the SRC. Let's not speak about the fact that the country cannot afford it. Yes, the country can afford it. And yes, the SRC would have probably done their job and done it well. I think what is unacceptable is for the Prime Minister to try to state that the justification for this is because hearing him state now that the judiciary, the Chief Justice and others would have taken the state to court if it is that it was blocked. So it means that you're stating that a cabinet and a government would make decisions based on your fear that you will go to court. Going to court is based on whether you did something that is right or wrong. So it should not be based on you trying to use the judiciary to say that the judiciary would have taken us to court and the SRC would have been the persons having to answer. And no, that is not the case. If you are the government and you reject it, there's nothing that the judiciary could have done because it meant that the SRC would have submitted what was required, and then you as the government and the opposition would have unanimously stated that we do not accept it at this time. So let's not try to pass the buck and throw persons under the bus and try to blame the judiciary for threats of taking the state to court, because that's a new excuse to justify this. As it pertains to leadership, that I think that is the difference with the N.T.A, where I would stand. In a situation like this, it is true. Whereas it can be afforded, we have to look at the climate in this country. And again, it is because of my training as a military officer. We have been trained not to do anything that we will not allow others under our command to do themselves. So if it is, we have a situation where the vast majority of the country, they are suffering. People do not know where their next meal is coming from. People cannot afford to pay their mortgage. People are suffering to try to get their taxi fare to get their children to school, to pay for school fees, to to try to deal with the basic day-to-day living in the country. You're struggling to get even 4% for the public sector, but you are part of the public sector, and it is okay for you to get a hike to the point that it could be about 5 or 6 times the salary of other persons. So that is the point. It has to do again with leadership by example. I could go back to myself when I was commissioner of police just before, because of me being a contracted commissioner of police. The only time that was done before would have been Dwayne Gibbs, and a precedent was set, and he was getting $140,000 a month. So it meant
Wow.
that based on me also being contracted, it gave me the opportunity to also make that similar claim. And I thought it would be irresponsible of me going as a commissioner of police, knowing what the present situation was for other police officers, for me to have a salary like that. I decided to have the same salary as the regular commissioners of police, which was really not practical, because when they leave, they have a pension, they have gratuity, they have all of that. You don't get it as a contracted person, which is why contracted persons get much more. And I decided to take 100,000 less per month for 3 years, which is over $3.6 million. And that is the type of leadership that the country needs. There's someone where it is you can state that I am prepared to go through the same consequences and frustration that the others under my command will do. And I think that is what is more important, that it should be seen along that line, that the present economic climate, it is being seen of that item where you're in that these ivory, these lofty towers, and you're having your feast and you're asking everyone else downstairs to eat cake.
Do you think that this would impact the public's opinion of this administration come this general election?
Unfortunately, yes. And the reason I say unfortunately is that we have a way of just holding on to one specific thing rather than look at what would have taken place over a 5 year period. That should not be the avenue to justify whether you will vote for a government or not. We recall that is what probably happened in 2010 over a $2 million flag, and that became a big thing. And that $2 million flag was a drop in the bucket as it pertained to the incompetence and the bad decision making process by the government at that time. That flag was just one aspect of it. So this year should not be seen as the be all and end all. What should be seen is how it is that you handle the economy, how you handle national security, health, education, social development, tourism, sports and culture, all of these things. If it is that you're just trying to home in on this as the avenue, it means that you are totally been you've seen everything else that was done, good, bad, or indifferent, by the government and the opposition and other political parties as being irrelevant. I am asking persons, sit down and take a broad perspective and look at what it is that the government may have done, not done, achieved, not achieved. Same thing with the opposition, other political parties opposed to the, and see if they have the policies, the principles, the priorities, the political will, and the right people to make Trinidad and Tobago the country that it should be. Holding on to this one element to decide whether you should vote for a government or not, I think that is rather small-minded. I mean, it should be something that you should consider, because it shows that the government is not in sync, and to analyze what is happening with the average man downstairs. And when that happens, that is when you will lose focus. Again, it goes back to leadership by example. I spend most of my time being on the ground, not in the 6th floor of the police admin building, not in the 5th floor in the Ministry of National Security. You got to be on the ground and understand what people go through. And when you do that, that decision to say, well, we will accept it because the SRC made the recommendation, would not have taken place.
Okay. And with all the economic issues that we're seeing happening, we're seeing that there's a continued issue in accessing forex currency, especially for small and medium enterprises. Where do you think the priority should be for this government in a time like this?
Putting a lot of focus and emphasis in trying to see if you could help the small businessman, because that situation with forex is not a matter of great concern for the large conglomerates who have the capability, the accessibility because of their accounts and so forth in North America. This is crippling the economy. It is crippling the small businessman who is pleading and looking for some avenue to try to get goods and services to continue his or her business. And even if as it pertains to even persons traveling abroad, why would you want to travel abroad on a vacation when you could get 200 US? Where are you going with that? What are you doing with it? So it has totally been a situation where I don't think that the interest has been put in place to understand the grave nature of it. It is going to obviously be a byproduct towards inflation, the increase in cost of goods and services, possible unemployment, businesses shutting down, because that crippling effect of that inability to get proper forex in a proper manner, in a manner that is worthy to ensure that business can boom and build and develop and multiply, it is going to have just the opposite. And that opposite effect is going to be a byproduct, as I said, of unemployment, inflation, increasing the cost of goods and services. And obviously, it is going to, which again becomes a byproduct to increase crime.
Right. And even with this, should businesses now be advocating for the governments to take this forex situation more seriously, especially as we're moving towards this general election?
Yes, they would, that they should, but they would not. When you look at a situation in this country that a president failed to adhere to the law, Paula Mayweeks in some other countries would have probably been investigated. You failed to adhere to the law, and you didn't do what was required, and it caused, and then you have a situation with a meritless being moved, and that again in a period where it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. Public trust and confidence in the police was 59%. The country felt safe, which again was a byproduct towards more investment, people feeling safer, people spending more money. And every single businessman said nothing. They all stayed quiet. You know why? Affect their business with the public
Right.
sector, with the state. So that's also when you listen to Gregory Aboud and all of them crying these crocodile tears now about crime and what is being done. You stayed silent. You stayed silent because it may have affected you. The only businessman that stood up and was concerned about it was Peter George. The rest of them, that is how we work in this country. Let me say nothing because it might affect me in getting my contracts with these businesses. All of them, they will say nothing because they're afraid that it will affect their investment and their opportunity to get contracts with the same state. But then they will be coming to me, whispering, complaining. Don't come to me and complain. Come forward. Let the public know that what the government is doing is unacceptable. You've got to find a solution. You have to put this as priority. But again, all of these chambers who all stayed silent, every single one of them, they were calling me, thanking me for providing firearms for them and their businesses and the different persons, but never wanting to open their mouth to voice their concern about the stupidity that was being stated by the government as it pertained to the same firearm issue. So it's okay, give me what I needed because it was the right thing. I thank you for it, but I'm not going to make an doing this inappropriate because it will affect my business. So the same thing is happening now. No businessman is going to openly come forward and make that statement. So they will stay quiet, and by silence, it can be seen and perceived by the business sector, the chambers, and the government can go ahead and do what they're doing whilst the economy is continuing to collapse.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick break right here and we're going to continue our conversations right after this. See you soon.